Join me next year at Exosphere, the alternative education platform where unique learning experiences cultivate the discipline, knowledge, and curiosity for building new enterprises that solve real problems. Its second boot camp, designed to accommodate people from all stages of life with a diversity of experience and ideas, happens from March to June 2014 in Santiago, Chile. I'll be there as a full-time fellow, as will a whole faculty and residents with experience in coding, design, development, marketing, and emerging technology to help you develop your business and yourself. You can find more details and apply at exosphe.re until January 15th. Season 4 of Notebook on Cities and Culture is brought to you by Daniel Murphy, Polar Inertia, a journal of nomadic and popular culture, online at polarinertia.com, and Medivate, a community and set of tools to help you build the kind of meditation practice you'd like to have, online at medivate.com. Today on the show, we have a conversation with urban mobility expert and CEO of Copenhagenized, Mikael Colville-Andersen. Now, if you've ever wondered what the word Copenhagenized means and what it has to do with the culture of cycling in Copenhagen, you'll find out today. Let's have a listen. Now, I was excited to come here from Los Angeles, where I live, because in Los Angeles, I only get around by bike, essentially that and the train, and it's regarded as a little bit eccentric these days, no longer freakish, but eccentric. Tell me, is there a city, is Los Angeles the least Copenhagenized city in that respect, or only toward the bottom of the list?
Globally or in America?
Let's start with globally.
I think, of course, Los Angeles has a lot of challenges ahead of it because of the mistakes that were made regarding the freeway system and the way that, neighborhoods are cut off from each other and the only access is by automobile. Of course, there are pockets of goodness in the Los Angeles area. I actually went to theater school, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Pasadena back in the day. Let's not name any years. And we used to go to Venice Beach, Santa Monica, and we could ride our bikes up and down the coast, and loads of people were riding bikes. So those little areas are still, places that, you can just ride your bike from around the neighborhood, So Long Beach, I was there at a conference last year. I don't know what happened there, but on their city hall, it says on the city hall there's a picture of a penny farthing bicycle, and it says America's most bicycle-friendly city. And I said to the politicians, but wait, that's not true. And they go, no, it's not, but it commits us to becoming that.
Oh, that's what that's about. It's just, we're going to do this, I guess.
But they are, in many ways, I think they have 2% of the population riding bicycles in Long Beach. But man, it is a really bicycle-friendly city. There's a lot of yardsticks that I look at. The amount of women riding bicycles, there's a fair amount in Long Beach. It's a relaxed city, but a lot of people ride their bikes to Friday or Saturday night. It's a way to get out in the evening. They have infrastructure. They have a lot of cool bicycle parking. So there's areas of LA that are ahead of the curve. But of course, it's a big city, so it's not everywhere. It's not connected. There's no network of separated bicycle infrastructure. So but I mean, in the global perspective, yeah, there's cities. You're ahead of Moscow, which is like just this, the armpit of bicycle culture on the planet. You're even ahead of Prague, which because of hapless politicians hasn't really embraced the bicycle boom. There's lots of cities that, Sao Paulo, Brazil, it's bigger than Los Angeles, but still, yeah, there's cities that you can boast of being better than, and you're certainly not Phoenix.
Phoenix might have to start over completely.
Yeah, rip it apart and build again. But I mean, yeah, it's that low density, you can't even put in a bus line that makes sense, stuff like that. So I mean, that's citywide, right? It's not always about the citywide. It's always also about the neighborhoods, the downtown area, planting a little garden in the middle of the urban landscape and letting that grow. It's not all about everybody has to ride a bike everywhere. It never is. It's about making the bicycle a respected and accepted transport form on equal footing with everything else.
It's a surprise to hear that Prague is so far behind in bikes, because we think of that as a huge public transit city, but a city being good at public transit and being good at bikes, not the same thing, right?
It's interesting to consider that all the great bicycle cities in the world, like the established bicycle cities, are also very good public transport cities. Dutch cities, for example, Copenhagen, unfortunately, we had a mayor in the 70s who ripped out our tramway system. We had an excellent tramway system, as Los Angeles did back in the day. But Japanese cities, which are, it's the third great bicycle nation, Japan. German cities. These 4 countries, they all have really good public transport. The poster children of the emerging bicycle cities, like Dublin and Paris and Barcelona, where there were no bicycles 5 years ago, and now they're well on their way to a mainstream bicycle culture. They also have very good public transport systems. So the one example I like to highlight is Bordeaux. In 2006, they had about just under 2% on bicycles. They basically put in 3 big tramway lines, like really extensive lines. They sort of fell out of the sky. They didn't start with the little short version, and then they just put it all in once. They went from 2% to 10% cycling levels in the city center within like a year of the tram lines being finished. So it's actually public transport and bicycles they go hand in hand. People who use bicycles or public transport or pedestrians, they're more likely to become intermodal. It's easy for them to switch from one transport to the other. The motorists, they're locked in their little their bubbles. It's really hard to get them to change their behavior because it's a nice soft seat with the heater blowing or the air conditioning on, and we just know that this is the great challenge, is forcing them to change their behavior.
No, I see. It is something. It doesn't really surprise me to see cycling go up with transit going in, because in Los Angeles, it's rolling your bike onto a train is something that's almost a necessity, because some days you don't want to bike 20 miles to get where you're going. Here, what's the situation? I know only some hours you can put your bike on a train. I mean, that's just about how many people are on the trains and riding bikes, right?
So we have different train systems here. We have the metro, which has a limitation during rush hour about being able to take your bike on. It requires also a bicycle ticket, but the metro goes everywhere that I can ride my bike anyway, so it's not really a big deal. The trains that serve Greater Copenhagen, the S trains, they have massive bicycle compartments, 24 hours a day. You can always take your bike on there, and it's for free. There's even ideas that there should be bike pumps on these train compartments, so that if you're sitting there waiting anyway, riding the train, you can just give your tires a little bit of extra air or whatnot. So there's and outside a lot of the train stations, there are also bicycle pumps for public use for free. Regional and national trains, you can take your bikes on all the trains at any time for a small supplement. So that intermodality here is really the key to any network. Combining everything and making everything fluid is incredibly important. And you should be able to take your bicycle absolutely everywhere you need to go. If you have a flat tire somewhere and there's no bike shop in the neighborhood, which is unusual. From where I live, I have 37 bike shops within a 5-minute bike ride of my house, because everybody has flat tires and needs a new chain and stuff. But I mean, you should be able to have total access with your bicycle absolutely everywhere you need to go.
I want to get a sense of your experience riding bikes in various cities. Now, growing up in Canada, were you riding from day one, from childhood? I mean, in North America, kids are the main cyclists, I suppose. Were you in that crowd?
When I was growing up, I grew up to a Danish English father and mother. But yeah, you're on your bike, and this is in the days before the culture of fear gripped Western society. So, you hopped on your bike with your friends and you disappeared, and you came back when you were hungry, and that was life in the 70s and 80s, that was normal, and it was through the 50s and 60s as well, I ended up riding my bike a little bit more. I've never been an avid cyclist, I was on a bicycle racing team for like one season because some of my friends were doing it, and that was fun. And this was also like in the days of Breaking Away, this famous cycling film. So I think it was probably that film that did that. Whatever. Then we went on to do other things after that season. But I used to move to cities. I've lived in many cities around the world. I used to ride a bike, not because I was a bike geek. I'm not very good at fixing a bike. I don't really give a damn about it. But I would use bikes to get around just because it kind of made sense. So maybe I've ridden bicycles maybe more than a lot of my contemporaries, but never in any hardcore fetish sense. It's just actually made sense for me to use the bicycle in a variety of cities that I've lived in through the years. Vancouver in Canada, but also I rode a bike around Pasadena once in a while, even when I was living there, Melbourne and whatnot. So but childhood was bicycle-based, absolutely, as every childhood should be.
This is important, a distinction to underscore, because when I'm riding my bike, I make a point not to wear any article of clothing that looks cycly. It sounds like you do the same. You do not own cycle shorts or what have you.
I mean, it's one of the surest yardsticks of a mainstream bicycle culture is that people are riding bicycles in the same clothes that they use as a pedestrian. As there's no bus passenger clothing. This is really one of the main hurdles for your country is this perception of cycling as only being sport or recreation, and maybe something kids do now in the driveway, and that's about it. Where it used to be quite normal. America was a great bicycle nation for decades. So this perception, 40 years, a generation has been given the impression that the bicycles are only, for sports and recreation. And therefore you have to have an enormous amount of equipment in order to just ride a bicycle. And I mean, the bicycle industry, I think they make more money on accessories than they actually do on the bicycles themselves. You need maybe your bike is going to last a few years, but you need new gloves or whatever those cycling gloves things are, or new shorts and the latest shoes. It's all this a subcultural approach to it. So here, you can see everybody you're going to see riding a bicycle here, they're just going home from work, or they're going to the supermarket, they're going to pick up their kids from kindergarten, and they don't have to dress up for that. It's they dress for their destination, not their journey.
Could we analogize it? Cycling in America is sort of like if you saw a car culture where everybody thought they had to buy the best sports car they could, wear driving shoes, and just gear up and go to the limit as far as luxury and tuning is concerned?
Absolutely. I have another analogy. Can I? I mean, it is in any subculture, especially like fitness or sports. Of course, there's all the gear. Look at skiing, man. I used to just ski with maybe some, a ski outfit back in the 80s, and now, my God, you need equipment, and you need it because it's peer pressure. It's a uniform. You look at cyclists. Look at my American cyclist friends on Facebook. They're all standing there with their helmet, but there's no bicycle in the. But it's for them. It's this name tag. I am a cyclist. And I've actually compared it to bowling. There was an article. Now you're from Los Angeles, so this maybe means nothing to you, but there was an article about how to ride a bike in the winter in North American cities. And every winter, these articles, blog posts come out.
Los Angeles, that's put on a sweater. But anyway.
Basically, yeah. And, maybe put some socks on, yeah. But there's some guy from Minneapolis or someplace where they get some snow. And this massive, long article about how to ride a bicycle in the winter. And he was, of course, recommending all of this fantastic space-age gear in order to ride a bicycle in the winter. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, all these people just don't understand. 80% of Copenhageners ride their bicycle all winter. We can have Arctic winters, maybe not every year, but we can have them. I have enough photo documentation to show you how it works here. But I looked at this list of recommended gear, and I said, right, I don't know what any of that is, but I'm going to look it up. And I spent the morning Googling every single item and putting it into a spreadsheet to see how much it cost. And it turned out that if I wanted to ride my bike in the winter, according to this Bike Geek, it would cost me 1,000 euros, right? And then
euros,
1,000 euros and all, and that's not even the bike, man. That's just all the gear. The little footies and the little the 8 layers of this, and I don't even know. I got a kick out of that, but I'm thinking, right, if you and me were sitting here in Vesterbro in Copenhagen, if we wanted to go bowling, we'd hop on our bike and would bike about 15 minutes. We'd get some stinky used shoes, would get some beers, and would start bowling. Imagine if we couldn't do that. Imagine if somebody recommended us, all the equipment you need to be an avid bowler. If you're not a cyclist, because you don't have any gear. But if you're not a bowler, if you're not the gear. So I said, right, I spent the afternoon that day looking up all the equipment that I would need if I wanted to become an avid bowler and join a club, and that came to about I think it was about 700 euros. So it's a bit cheaper, but still, it's
in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's the ball, the shoes, the wrist protector, the shirts. My God,
A bowling shirt is expensive.
Yeah, bowling shirts are expensive, and and I don't know. I don't have any Facebook friends who stand there posing with their bowling shirt. You know what I mean? Like, I am a bowler. It's we're just going bowl, and we don't need all that gear. It's the same thing with cycling. It's been that way for 125 years. cycling has been hijacked in North America by the avid cyclists, and that's fine if they want to ride their bikes and they get a kick out of it. I mean, keeps them off the streets. That's great, But I mean, it's about the 99% now, and it's about how do you get regular citizens onto a bicycle without having them to step onto a societal soapbox to declare their how green and environmentally friendly they are. No, you know what? People just want to go from A to B, and if you make that possible on a bicycle, people will do it.
So could we say one of the main achievements of Copenhagen cycling culture, even though that's not really the right term, is that a cyclist is not an identity. There's no identity anymore.
Yeah, we say the word cyclist here, but I'm not a cyclist. I'm just a guy who rode my bike down to the cafe to meet you. I went to the supermarket on foot today, so I was a pedestrian, I suppose, right? I mean, you don't announce at a dinner party, well, I'm a bus passenger, actually. It's just transport.
In Los Angeles, that sometimes happens. People will say, well, I ride the bus, or well, I walk, very, very much like, look at me. Okay,
well, fair enough. And in New York, there is the expression strap hanger for people who ride the metro or the subway, and it's not a bad thing. It's just, I'm a strap hanger. What am I, that's kind of a cool word. But yeah, it's people here aren't cyclists. They're just people who happen to use a bicycle to get around. Of course, we have avid cyclists, but when you have 55% of the population riding a bicycle every day, they don't stick out like they do in North American cities. They sort of mix into the fashionistas, the doctors, the students, the mothers, the fathers. It's just like a one big critical mass. What we've done here is we've re-democratized cycling. We've gave it back to the people for whom it was intended when the bicycle was invented, not the 1% who like to go a bit faster and get their pulse up and generate testosterone. The bicycle is the most democratic invention in transport in history, and what we've done is given it back to the people, and not in any pinko commie socialist Scandinavian sense. It's just simply all people, regardless of age or wage or race or political leaning.
Now, were you coming here to Denmark when you were growing up? Since it's your partial homeland, or it's in some sense half your ancestral homeland. Did you see the cycle culture here, or did you just never leave behind the cycling of your childhood? It was always a thing for you. I guess, was it an influence from cycling cities, or is it just something about the way you've lived? You've always kept cycling.
Yeah. Now, I haven't cycled my entire life. I've cycled, like I said, in some cities that I lived in because it made practical sense. I haven't demonstratively cycled in every city I've lived in, but I didn't associate Copenhagen with bicycle culture or cycling. But when I arrived, I came here to hang out with some friends for a bit and ended up staying. And then I said, right, guys, I'm going to stay for a while. And they went, right, Michael, there's two things you need to know. The two most important things we're going to tell you. One of them is you are now an FC Copenhagen football supporter. You cannot support any other team.
You've been drafted.
Basically, yeah, I can't. They made that choice for me. Do you understand? I said yes. He said fine. Second thing is you're going to need a bike, man. And they found this bike key and they tossed it to me. It's green, I think. Isn't it green? Yeah, I think it's green. And it's down in the backyard somewhere. Just try some of the locks, you'll be fine. And it was some crappy old bike with a rusty chain. And I just went, okay, that's when in Rome you do as the Romans do. And that was sort of how I off I went without thinking about it. It was normal, and I didn't question it because that's what you do. That, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Even one point I like to make when I travel and do all of my keynotes is saying, I'm not anti-car. I'm pro-city. My kids, they're my children. So of all children, they're pretty good at riding their bikes. I put a lot of effort into it. I never at any point tell them, we're riding a bike to save the planet, children. We are above those who choose car. No, I don't even talk about it. It's not even in the conversation. You just ride your damn bike, and the kids will just grow up thinking, oh, that was normal. Okay, And if they go off to America on a high school exchange, they're going to discover that's a little bit different, perhaps. Hopefully, by that point, American cities will be more, modernized with bicycle infrastructure. But
depends which one they go to, I guess.
Absolutely, I hopefully will have a say in that. Sorry,
Phoenix.
Sorry, Phoenix. It ain't going to be you. But the same with we sort our garbage here. And in great detail. In our backyard, we have all of these different categories, hard plastic, soft plastic, blah, blah, blah. We have it all in our flat. I would never do that if those containers weren't made available to me in my backyard. And I do it because it's simply convenient for me to do it. Not even me. I wouldn't give a damn. I would just maybe do the newspapers or something. But here it's incredibly systemized. The city has made it possible for me to do it. And again, my kids, I say, kids, go out with the garbage. This is the plastic. This is the cardboard. These are the batteries. I don't say, we have to save the planet, children. Let us recycle. No, they've never heard that from me. They just do it, and it's normal. And that is going to help them when they grow up, just by growing up thinking this is what people do, man. And the people who don't do it, that's kind of, you don't recycle your garbage. It's kind of like psychology without mentioning anything. Non-psychology, psychology. I don't even know if that's a thing. But anyway.
Anti-psychology. You've spoken elsewhere about the failure of environmentalist branding over the years, and it sounds to me, there's not a lot of value in saying, well, if you do this, you're better. If you do this, you're saving the world. But if you do this, you're normal. Normality is weirdly the biggest selling point you can have, isn't it?
Yeah. I've said that environmentalism is the greatest marketing flop in the history of Homo sapiens, and I can't really, and I've said that for a few years now, so I can't actually think of anything that would be worse. Over 40 years of awareness and activism, and really, even in Denmark, maybe we're doing it more than in America, but whatever, we're still not doing anything. The average citizen, Joe Public, is not, living the environmentalist dream, man. Of course not. We do it here because it's made possible for us. That's like I said. So it is a failed way of messaging. It's all just finger wagging and looking down your nose and ride a bicycle because when you drive you're killing the planet. All that dead polar bears and God, nobody gives a damn anymore.
You never want to hear the word carbon footprint.
No, no, not at all. God, all of these catchphrases, these are invented by really the kind of the left wing environmentalist groups, and these people are not very good at marketing their product. Otherwise, they would have succeeded. I have always said that we should market urban cycling like we market any other product on the market. Look at wine. We're sitting in a bar, which is actually in the evenings a wonderful wine bar. Imagine if the wine industry sold their products like environmentalists. You know what? If you drink this wine, it's probably going to taste good, but man, you're going to get a bit drunk. If you drink some more, you're going to get dizzy. More, you're going to throw up on your shoes, and then you're going to have a hangover. You're going to lose tomorrow's going to be gone from your life, and if you keep drinking it, you're going to get, liver disease and die, and, drink wine. No, they're actually telling you some positive things about their product, and it's not save the planet, it's just like, what, this will be enjoyable for you. This is going to be nice with your meat. It has a practical function. When you eat that steak, this wine is actually going to, it's all, and riding a bike is practical. It makes sense. It's logical. And in a way, we should just be selling urban cycling, not sport, mountain bike, all that other stuff, just urban cycling to the 99%, using the marketing techniques that they were exposed to every minute of their day.
Right. Of course, in the States, you also have to sell urbanism. You have to sell urban living and then sell urban cycling. Like this, a lot of people I don't know what the situation is here in Denmark. I've only seen Copenhagen, but, I grew up in the States, in a suburb. The sort of suburban driving lifestyle was all I knew about. I don't know how it was in Canada. Was that what seemed like the future to you? Like, of course you get a car when you're grown up and you drive to work 30 miles. Was that the way it seemed?
Yeah, I grew up in Calgary, which is, the oil capital of North America now.
Probably the drivingest city in Canada.
Well, I would definitely say one of them, yeah. And, a city that has really no natural topographical, there's a big word, and a city that has no natural, geographical borders. There's Indian reservations, First Nations peoples, but the city otherwise could expand as it wished. Nobody could stop it. Now they have a lot of public transport. Their light rail transit system is actually run by wind power from a farm farther south. But yeah, it's a big, ugly North American city with that really stupid downtown that just dies at 6 o'clock in the evening and nobody uses it. So that was the reality that I grew up in. I took the train a lot, I took the bus a lot, and then I got a car, of course, as you do. But that was the norm. And then once you start traveling, nowadays you travel on the internet, right? 3 clicks and you can figure out all sorts of stuff. So, but for me, it was starting to travel, realizing, they do it differently here. Oh, they do it differently here, and that's really the key to anything is showing them just what happens in another city, which which is what you see now with the internet in Copenhagen and Amsterdam. It's all over the place, you know. And then you still get your misconceptions, you know. Oh, they've always been doing that. Cars are so expensive, and you know, no, it's all every myth. I mean, half my job is busting myths. Really, I wish it was like a little more, you know, bowling, but it's basically busting myths. No. There's no.
Tell me a couple of the most persistent myths about Copenhagen. The lifestyle, the cycling here. What do people believe? Your goal is to get them not to believe, or you need to stop them from believing before you can make inroads elsewhere?
I think the general perception of Copenhagen as this quaint little European city where everybody lives around one cobblestone square and rides their bike with, you know, from one side of the square to the other is you know, Copenhagen has the third largest urban sprawl in Europe. Our medieval city center, you know, the city was founded in 1167, but outside the medieval city center, Copenhagen is really a 20th century invention. The neighborhood that we're in here, this is from maybe 1905, 1910, and everything spreading out from the city center is recent. The streets are wide, like North American streets, built for streetcars, tramways and whatnot. Obviously not for the automobile. But so we have like really wide streets. We have motorways roaring into the city, of course, but there's separated infrastructure for bicycles everywhere you go. We've done that since. So this perception of, that's just a little European capital, you know, this won't work here in America, you know, it's simply not true. And, you know, you look at Berlin with 5 million people, you know, it's not a little quaint European capital. So, you know, it's basically a geography lesson that's needed there. The other thing is that, you know, they've always done that, you know, and no, we haven't. In Denmark and the Netherlands, everywhere in the world peaked really in the late 40s for cycling levels. And then the urban planning started to revolve around the automobile. And like I said, everybody started getting pushed away.
Right up to modernist urban planning, cycles were getting more and more popular.
Yeah, late 40s, everywhere in the world. Dublin was a fantastic cycling city on a par with Copenhagen. Manchester had 20%. Everywhere in the world that you can imagine, there were people riding bicycles as transport. And then, of course, everybody, and pedestrians included, started getting pushed out of the formerly rather democratic streets, and the car started rolling in. So in Copenhagen, we went from about 55% in the late 40s of the percentage of the population riding bicycles to about 9% in the late 60s. That's a long drop. Many cities today would beg for 9%, yes. You notice that difference. And then, to our credit, the oil crisis had a big impact on Denmark, this small country, and that sort of forced us to react, forced us to look at other transportation alternatives, and we hadn't really lost sight of the bicycle. It was within the same generation. And then we started putting back in the separated cycle tracks that we had since 1920s. And that was the game changer. And then we started to reverse the tide. And today we're at 36% of the population arriving at work or school in the city of Copenhagen are on bicycles. But among the citizens who live in the city in Copenhagen, it's 55% using their bikes every day. So that misconception, they always did it. You know, you can't compare it. No, you know what? We sucked. We made the stupid mistakes of putting our bets on the car, and we destroyed our cities just like, you know, everybody else has. But we fixed it.
There's nothing inherent about Copenhagen that is cycling.
No, I mean, one thing I noticed, because we get a lot of planners and engineers and politicians and study groups from universities coming to Amsterdam and Copenhagen, and the Netherlands is a fantastic inspiration generally with their planning for people instead of cars. But if you compare Amsterdam and Copenhagen, you know, standing in Amsterdam, it's a giggle fest. You know, it's like, oh my God, there's bicycles everywhere because of the layout of the city. It's narrow streets. You feel like there's bicycles absolutely everywhere. Here we have the same number of bicycles, but you don't have that same impression because we're so spread out, and we have a lot of straight lines into the city center. But here, planners will stand, you know, from a North American city, will stand here, and if they squint their eyes, they can see their American city with bicycles, because it, you know, maybe not the architecture, but like the layout of the city actually resembles North American and Australian cities and whatnot. So this is, you know, I often call Amsterdam fantasy land and Copenhagen is Tomorrowland. This is how cities could do it, Copenhagenizing themselves. Lots of stuff to be, you know, mined from Amsterdam's experience, absolutely. But layout, you know, Copenhagen is the model for cities around the world.
Now, as you say, you traveled here and you decided to stay and were soon converted into team allegiance and all that. But what about Copenhagen made you want to stay when you traveled here?
Yeah. What made me want to stay in Copenhagen is more of a personal story, I suppose. It was sort of I had been traveling all around the world, working as a journalist, like for 2 years, nonstop. New countries, new cities every few months. So I came here to visit friends, and I just realized, in retrospect, that I needed roots. I needed to just stop for a while, and I had good friends here, and it's a beautiful city, and there was a football team, soccer team to support, obviously, and there was a bike.
Heritage here as well, don't you?
Yeah. My dad's Danish, so coming here was not odd. My last name is Andersen, S-E-N. So my entire life I'd been spelling my name. No, it's S-E-N, not S-O-N. And I'm walking upstairs, stairways in buildings here, and I'm walking past Magnuson, Rasmussen, Larsen, and I'm going, wait, this is a place where I don't have to spell my name.
No more will I have to do this.
That's it. I've come home. So I decided to hang out for a while, and then that's I've been here ever since. And
first name as well. You don't have to explain the spelling of that here, do you?
Yeah, no. Actually, you can spell Michael 2 different ways. But yeah, I just say with a K, and I go, okay, yeah. In other countries, you spell that with a K, Michael with a K. Wow, what's that? Is that what kind of country? Here, it's just like, oh, it's the one with the K. Good, right. So I needed home at a certain point in my life, and then I found it. So, and I'm a Copenhagener. I'm not Danish. I don't feel Danish. I feel like I'm a Copenhagener. I'm this urbanist dweller.
Is there a sharp divide in Denmark? You've got the Copenhageners and everyone else. Like in America, we have that divide with our cities and everyone else.
I think you have that everywhere on the planet. I have more in common with somebody in San Francisco or Melbourne or Tokyo than I do with people who live, 30 miles from here, Absolutely. It's the sharpest borders in history are the ones surrounding cities, separating from the provinces ever since cities were formed. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm a city boy.
You're in the country of the urban almost. It's like airports are their own country together. Cities are the same way?
I think so. I mean, I've always said I'd like, where's the passport, for cities, and then you have to go through passport control to leave a city out into the provinces. I'd just like to be able to travel freely through some kind of, cultural free trade agreement to any city I want. And then if I have to leave that city, then you go through the whole TSA, baggage and body searches and everything, just to go to a farm or wherever, So that's just me, though. I'm a city boy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. But tell me, how long has your profession involved? Cycling infrastructure, cycling consultation, design. How long have you been in that game?
I would say about 6 years, and came at it by coincidence, by taking a photo one day on my way to work at Danish Broadcasting Corporation and putting it on Flickr. It was just my morning commute. I did a lot of street photography and took this one photo. The light had just turned green, and here, if the light's green, boom, the cyclists are off. You're going to work. It's like any other traffic form.
Cyclists, then cars, right? They go first.
Yeah, a lot of intersections here have a so-called pre-green, so the cyclists are given priority. They shoot off first, and then when the cars start going, there's already cyclists passing by. It's a safety measure. The light had turned green. There's cyclists roaring into motion, and there's one girl in front of me. She just hadn't moved yet. She was a pillar of calm in a world of chaos. And I took a photo. It's not a great photo, but I put it on Flickr, and I had a big network there. And some Americans on Flickr were saying, "Oh, dude, she's in a skirt on a bike. How does she do that?" Literally, it was like an innocent question, but how does she ride a bike in a skirt? And she's wearing like boots with heels. It was like there's this bizarre creature they just, like you see on the old antique maps, some weird creature down in Africa with 8 heads. They go, how does she do that? And I'm going, what the hell are these people talking about? I really had no idea what they were talking about. I was just a guy in Copenhagen on a bike. I started taking more pictures of elegantly dressed Copenhageners on bikes. Ended up starting a blog, Copenhagen Cycle Chic. That exploded in my face. There was like hundreds of people a day within 2 weeks. That just started this, this whole boom. Which led to the blog, which led to the consultancy, and I've just, they say if you need to have 10,000 hours to become an expert or something. I think I've had more than that because I've just been living and breathing that ever since. There was like the first 3 years I just dreamt bicycles. I didn't want to, I wanted, Farrah Fawcett and, all sorts of erotic stuff going on. No, I just got bikes in my dreams. That's done now, but still, it was, I just walked into it and absorbed it, and that's just become what I do now. So, and then they have said now, where does the bicycle boom come from? And there was a journalist who a few years ago was researching, why are we all talking bike now? And she said it all leads back to that photo, and she called it the photo that launched 1 million bicycles. So we wouldn't be talking here if that photo wasn't, if I didn't randomly take that photo and then recognize the value of it.
It sounds like it's one of those situations where this ramped up and the world started considering you an expert, so you had to become one. Like the expertise was sort of, this man is an expert. Then you had to, I'd better become an expert. Was that sort of how it felt?
I mean, at the beginning, on both blogs, Copenhagen Cycle Chic, but and then Copenhagenized.com, which is the more urbanist version. And that was my own journalistic curiosity. Why are these people reacting to this? What is what we do here? Why is it special? I'd get asked a question, and then I'd find the answer, but I'd also find 10 other answers. And I just was a sponge. I mean, I was a happy film director and television director. I had a great career going for me. This just, I don't know. It's just one of those random things in your life. I've been compared to, humbly, to Jane Jacobs quite often, and one of the reasons is, she was just walking down the street with her baby carriage, and they said, "Hi, lady, we're going to put a motorway." She's going, "No, you're not." "Yes, we are." "No, you're not." "Why not?" "I'll get back to you on that." And then she just threw herself into that and just absorbed like a sponge and became the great, mother of American urbanism, and out of nowhere. And I've kind of had that, out of nowhere experience. If I was educated as a planner or an urbanist or an architect, I would have been really influenced by that education, which is very formed and structured and really similar all over the world. I don't have that baggage. I can think freely and I can think differently as an urbanist, in the sense that I'm a guy who lives in an urban land, urban setting. So that's a liberating thing for me. I've discovered later on, I don't, talking to engineers, you can't do that. Why can't you do that? I can't do that. Well, why can't you do that, man? It says, yeah, but we look into computer models, and I'm going, I've looked into a lot of these computer models that traffic engineers are taught at university. They're like from 1960s,
right. They just persisted. They persisted.
Because nobody thought about changing them. And, this one is called the 85th percentile. This basically determines speed limits in cities. It's the most archaic, bizarre, outdated. And this is what controls our cities. I said that our cities are the matrix. We live in the matrix, and some of us realize that now and are trying to find a way out. But they're all controlled by computer models run by traffic engineers who are brilliant minds, but they're just not been given the right problems to solve. So, this 85th percentile, that it's from a rural highway study from 1961 or something like that. And this actually applies to speed limits in our cities where people are walking around. Come on,
But there's numbers involved that are concrete, and it always feels good to have, I can point to this number. I mean, for any of us, we like to point to numbers. Yeah. Correct, incorrect. It doesn't really matter, does it, for some of us?
No, it doesn't. But I mean, when a politician comes into office and says, right, I want to do more for bikes, and he goes to the engineering department, and they say, and I can't do that. We don't have a computer model for that. Whatever you're saying, we don't have it in our. We don't have a program, sorry. And, we work with engineers in our projects around the world, but one of my engineer friends, he was saying, you know what, Google traffic engineer jokes. That's it. That's all he said. And I did. And there's actually, a great self-irony. Why did the engineer cross the road? Because that's what they did last year, or that's what the computer model told them to do. So, one of the main philosophies that I have, and I'm talking a lot about, is how we should stop engineering city streets. Traffic engineering is a failed science. People are still dying all over the planet, in our cities, in our rural areas, you name it. So traffic engineering, thanks very much. Thanks for coming. There's the door. In its current form. Instead, we should focus on using design principles, basic design principles. The people who made my smartphone here, they were thinking about me as the user. My daughter, who's 6, who can master it. My 86-year-old dad. They were thinking about the end user, the human being at the end of the design process. Traffic engineers don't. They stare at a computer screen and look at existing models and maybe try to tweak them to make them a little more efficient. That, and using human observation and anthropology and mapping people's desire lines in a city. This is the future of urban planning. Traffic engineering has had its day. And a lot of my traffic engineer colleagues and at conferences and stuff, they say to me, they come up to me afterwards, and I'm sort of, oh no, here they come. And they say, I'm an engineer, been an engineer for 20 years, 30 years. And I'm going, oh, here it comes, but nobody's ever said this kind of stuff to us before. I'm going, nope, sorry, but it's brilliant, And one guy, and they're
on board.
They're on board, and they 4 or 5 of them have said exactly the same thing on different continents, really. We're problem solvers, man. We just want to solve problems. Nobody's ever told us in our careers to solve a different problem than trying to get cars to flow more smoothly. And one of them says we can't do it. There's no way of getting 100 years of traffic engineering. You think we would have figured it out, right?
This is as good as it's getting, I'm afraid.
That's it. The one thing we've learned from 100 years of traffic engineering in its current form is this: if you create more space for cars, more cars come. Widening that motorway, you're screwed a year down the road again after it's completed and your billions of dollars have been spent. It's simply, imagine if our education system was the same as it was in the 1950s. Imagine if our hospital care, our health care was the same as the 1950s. There would be a bit of an uproar about that if we still stuck to, we had leeches to draw blood out of us because we thought that could heal the evil spirits. This is traffic engineering for us now. We need modernization.
Tell me some of the cities that come to your company and say, we want what Copenhagen has. Who are these cities? What type of cities come to you?
5-6 years ago, there were very few cities in the world outside of the mainstream, the established bicycle cities that were even talking bike. The word bike had never even been mentioned at a city council meeting. Now everybody is. So the number of cities, that are approaching us and just generally coming on study trips, looking at Amsterdam and Copenhagen. I mean, it's everywhere on the planet. We've had people from Turkey, from China, from America, Brazil, all over Europe. I mean, this is really the new normal, putting bicycles into the traffic equation and making them respected transport forms for regular people, the citizen cyclists, as I call them. This is the new normal, and this is the new paradigm for city planning. So it's everywhere. Maybe African cities are still the exception, I must admit. We were working with cities like the city of Dublin, the city of Winnipeg in Canada. We're doing a bicycle and pedestrian strategy for them.
Speaking of winter cycling, I mean, that's another thing entirely in Winnipeg. Like, when it gets that cold, do you really have to take any precautions with cycles, or is it just dress like you would if you were walking around?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we have an Arctic snowstorm here and the temperature plummets to, irritatingly low temperatures, I will put on my warm clothes. If I was going to walk in that weather, I would put on the appropriate, I'd dress for it, basically. My mother taught me that much, if you're cold, put on a sweater,
You're not biking differently, though.
No, not at all. I think when you get the real hardcore snowstorms, I have a ski jacket, like a lot of people who go skiing do. I just put on a ski jacket and maybe some ski gloves, and a warm hat. But I'm not buying bicycle hats and bicycle jackets. No, you know what? I have the stuff in my closet. I always say, open your closet. It's already filled with the cycling clothes you need. But yeah, if you're in extreme North American prairie weather, minus 40 with a wind chill, that's probably not a nice day to ride a bike, so then maybe you won't, or you're going to be hardcore and you will, whatever. The point is that, the 90% of the year for most cities in the world are doable,
Right.
Speaking of myth busting, we can't ride bicycles here, it's too hot. You hear it in some cities, not here in Copenhagen, but like some cities will say, we have a warm summers. Yeah, and then there's Seville in Spain. They went from 0% to 7% on bicycles in 5 years, and they're hot. Oh, we can't ride bikes here, we have hills. Yeah, so here's a list of, 20 cities in Europe with 20% modal share who have just the same hills as you do, and 80 years ago, there was bicycles going up and down your hills, right? You're just lazy now. You've forgotten what bicycles are supposed to be used for. It's too cold here. Yeah, there's a town in Finland called Oulu. They have 14% modal share for bikes in the winter, and they're right by the Arctic Circle. And this is like the myth busting thing. This, whatever you think can't be done, there's somebody doing it. You know what I mean? That's the main point.
This type of figure, the modal share, is important. If you could explain a bit about that for those who don't know, what is modal share, and what's a favorable modal share? When does it get unfavorable?
The modal share is a way of describing the different modes of transport in a city. So what is, what percentage of people in Copenhagen ride a bicycle? 55% of the population ride bicycles. That's the modal share for bikes. So
is there a percentage of the population that uses this mode? That's the modal share.
Yeah, basically, and little cities they often measure different. So here we measure in two ways. The number of people arriving at their workplace or their place of education by different modes of transport. Driving, cycling, walking, and public transport. I said public transport, didn't I? No. Okay, right. And public transport, of course. And in Copenhagen, it's 71% that arrive at work or education in forms of transport other than a car. So it's only 29% using cars. So that's the way of how you divide how people. In a lot of American cities, you're pushing 90% modal share for cars, right? And we were talking about this before, but it's interesting to consider Los Angeles. In 1900, the modal share for bicycles in Los Angeles was 20%. 20% of the population were riding bicycles to get around as transport in LA. You had a great bicycle police squad too. I've got to see some great vintage photos of that.
We very briefly had a bicycle freeway, I'm sure you know about, that was around Pasadena.
Oh,
for a year.
Very, very famous. It's now the the Pasadena Freeway or the Socorro? I can't remember the name.
Say Arroyo Seco.
Arroyo Seco
Very
Freeway.
old freeway.
That's it. Yeah, that's good.
People drive 20 miles too fast an hour on.
Yeah, that's legendary, in bicycle infrastructure. A beautiful structure as well. But there's the greatest urban planning film in history is Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
You got the main character. He doesn't have money for the streetcar, so he hops on the streetcar at the front of it. So dodging the ticket, and there's two kids sitting there, and he's going, "Hey, mister, what are you doing? Don't you have a car?" He says, "A car in Los Angeles is the greatest public transport city on the planet. Who needs a car?" Right? And that was actually true back in the day.
And in 1986, that was the time it got the most laugh, because that was the low point of transit probably in the history of the city.
Absolutely. And I often recommend it when I teach at school, at universities and whatnot. I say, watch this film. A lot of this generation, they don't. It's not a film that sort of maybe a lot of people have seen, so they watch it. It's still a good film. I saw it with my kids the other day, or a couple months ago, and it's still these kids with animation and computer techniques. They actually still bought it, and they thought it was still a good film, and they didn't say that's really crappy animation. No, they actually it's really well done. Yep. So you got everything you need for urban planning, how to and how not to in that film.
Right. And I was thinking, I saw that movie in the theater as a kid. I was probably I guess I'm one of the younger people to have seen that in the theater, and then you have a new generation of kids watching it. And this idea of generations, when you're Copenhagenizing a place, it's more about creating a culture that seems normal to the young kids growing up, right? I mean, you're going to convert, you could convert a 50-year-old somewhat, but it's about their future grandkids, you know what I mean? They're going to grow up and internalize everything, and it's about creating a new normality for people to be born into. Is that more like the goal?
I think so. It is, it's the massive transformation of our cities. We deal with bicycles in my work, and yet I'm not a cyclist, as I'd like to point out once again. Thank you for letting me say that. But I mean, it is. It's about modernizing our cities and making them more livable, and creating the new normal. I know I have friends in North American cities who ride their bikes to school with their kids, and the kids are going, "Can we stop like a block away? Because it's getting kind of embarrassing that we're riding bikes." And that's because that's peer pressure. That's not their fault. That's the society's fault, of course. But then you have like my son, who's 11 here. They all were heading down to soccer practice, and one of the kids didn't have a bike, and they're going, "You don't have a bike?" And they're looking, and he was like, "Oh God!" And then that kid had a bike within a week. I tell you. He didn't want to be the odd man out, So that's their reality. It's nothing to do with eco-friendly green goodness. It's just like, my friends do that, I want to do that too.
And the useful side of peer pressure. This is like, all my friends got driver's licenses at 16. Why can't I have one in 1970 or whatever?
Yeah, or they all got cars when they took. Somebody bought them a car. Damn it! Why don't I have a car bought for me? Absolutely.
Right.
It's a whole 2 generations of American cinema is all about there's this car culture and a lot of films wanting to portray a poor schmuck, they have him riding a bicycle, in recent history, so yeah, it's just a perception, of course they're lame to do that, but that's the screenwriters and the directors, they were just making cinema that reflected the societal values at that time. So yeah, we have to change that. We're not going to become a different race of people. We're just going to become more rational, and we're going to think more about making our cities nicer. And with urbanization, this is a very important issue. The bicycle is just a symbol of all the things that needs to be done, and it's a powerful symbol. It transformed human society more faster and more effectively than any other invention in human history when it was invented 125 years ago. It was progress. It was the future, man. It was the symbol of everything that humankind could achieve. We're seeing now that it has become the symbol of everything that humankind can achieve in urban living, in the way we should be living our lives. And, driving is becoming the new smoking.
It comes down to it. This is about using our space more effectively, more ingeniously. This is about usage of space, good usage of space, right? Smart usage.
It is. It's interesting to consider that, cities, since they first were formed, for 7,000 years, were actually very intelligent use of space. I've called streets the most democratic space in the history of Homo sapiens. And, there was a whole bunch of people squeezed into small spaces. They made it work. Yeah, maybe it wasn't that great when you didn't have, toilets or sewers. Sure, there's maybe some improvements. They talk about the smells in these cities that we have no record of. But my God, it must have been.
I'm glad we don't have a record of.
Absolutely. But if you lived in those cities, that was just you grew up. You were conditioned. You grew up and this place stinks, and that's fine. You didn't actually know that it was a bad smell. Because it was a normal smell. So it's in a way, yeah. It's riding a bike is normal. It's not a bad thing. It's that same kind of thing. It's conditioning. But cities throughout history have been fantastic in the way that they've used space and accommodated many, many people. We've had super overcrowded periods in history in Copenhagen where I don't know how those people squeezed into the medieval city center but it still worked, and they made it work, and that's what we're doing now. It's actually something that is not far from human logic and human experience and human rationality to do it. And now that so many people are thinking about it, we have a reason to be really optimistic about the future of our cities. And certain cities are rocking forward, and they're becoming the role models. And cities need role models. If Paris hadn't started their bike share system, and the mayor hadn't started implementing 30 kilometer an hour, 20 mile an hour zones, ripping out motorways, London wouldn't have started banking on bikes. New York would not have their bike share system now. It's the big city ego, New York's going, hey, what are they doing over there? They got bicycles now in Paris? What is this? I can do that. I want to do that too. And then that started the ball rolling. So, and then the cities of in regions and the cities of different sizes, they look to each other. They're all competing. It's all an ego trip being a city. So, thanks to Paris for launching the ego trip that is, cycling in New York and London and everything else, and that's the way it goes. We need leaders now, and we need people to take the great leap, and baby steps be gone.
We talk about modal share just to get the perspective in for the audience. Right now, at this moment, what's a good modal share for Scandinavia or for Europe or for America? Like, how do they differ? The good modal shares right now.
I don't think I've ever said the word modal share as often as I have in this interview, but hey, it's important, So what we generally say is going from under 5% to 5% is the hard slog. This is really the uphill battle, from a city with no bikes to a city with 5% of the citizens on bicycles. That's a struggle, changing perceptions, making space for it. There is something in Europe called the Charter of Brussels, where it's a goal for cities. A lot of mayors have signed this, committing themselves to getting to 15% of the population onto bicycles in the cities that are now below that. So, in a way, that's a good guideline that I use quite often. Once you get to 15, then it's much easier. But as soon as you hit 5, you're sailing. Getting from 5 to 15. really a piece of cake compared to going from 0 to 5, or 2 to 5 or whatnot. So that's a good way of looking at a good yardstick. There's really what you have in America. For years, all you had was Davis, California. Little, lovely little.
I've been there, but that was the one.
Yeah, that's the sort of that for years. That was the one. I don't even know. I think they're at 10% or something, maybe 15. Can't remember it off the top of my head. Lovely little university town. Perfect for cycling. The demographics in America, the students riding their bikes. Then Portland came along, and they've done some amazing stuff with infrastructure. They found loopholes in your planning, restrictions to do pilot projects to put in Copenhagen-style infrastructure. And they've said that they're at 6%. Grain of salt, because I've heard that they only do their bike count in June during bike month.
Tricky, Portland's tricky.
Yeah, and I'm there in November once, and I'm going talking to their head of their DOT, going, dude, where's your bikes? He's going, oh, it's a bit drizzly today. I'm going, yeah, and what? Here it's pouring rain, and you still have a couple 100,000 people on bikes. So I kind of make fun of them. So what really at the moment, the poster child, I think, in America is Minneapolis. I think they're approaching 4% now. They're getting close to that all-important 5. So that they're really, and that's a bit of a chilly place in the winter, and still they're proving it possible. The premier city for cycling in many ways in North America for years was Montreal. They've had separated cycle tracks since 1989 on some streets. They have streets with, at the moment, with 9,000 cyclists a day. Okay, I like the word bicycle users as opposed to cyclists, because when you guys hear cyclists, if I'm at a bar in the States and I meet a girl and I'm a cyclist, she's going to have this really kind of maybe bad dream or bad images in her head of me in spandex, with clicky shoes and stuff.
It's never been flattering.
No,
clicky shoes, spandex, especially in North America. A lot of those spandex guys are not in good shape.
No, that's true. You get to, they do call it, they call them mammals, middle-aged men in lycra. This is sort of not a nice way of putting it, but it is, hey, whatever, they're getting exercise, man, that's a good thing at that age, that's fine. But Montreal has been really a leading city in North America. And we publish the Copenhagenized Index, the Bicycle-Friendly Cities Index, every couple of years. And Montreal, in the last version this year, it was the only North American city in there. That says a lot, really, about the state of affairs for urban cycling and reestablishing the bicycle in American cities.
The friendliness is about what? Bike parking, separated cycleways. It's about, what is it about?
Well, there's in the index we use 13 parameters. Political will. What are do politicians even talk about bikes, or is it like still, like saying, a very bad word? The facilities. Yeah. How many kilometers of or miles of separated infrastructure they have? Also the social perception of it. Are bikes accepted by the general public? What's the modal share? What's the modal share increase since the bicycle started booming in 2006? Also perception of safety. We will say that a city where more people ride without helmets is a better city for cycling than a city where everybody is geared up totally. It just shows that the individual perception of safety, which is the only one that counts, sorry to the safety nanny brigades out there, that says everything. That person has made an individual choice. I feel safe enough to ride, without all the gear, So there's these 13 parameters, which are really kind of concrete statistical things, and then we add bonus points for what's happening. There's been an election. That mayor's really talking it out, and there's plans now for 100 kilometers of infrastructure in this. So there's a lot of ways, and that bonus points sort of push it, one city over another.
On the subject of gear, you, on principle, do not ride with a helmet, right?
No.
You have TED Talk about this, and some people are startled by this do not wear a helmet sensibility.
Yeah, I mean, we know a lot about helmets and the effect of helmets on cycling. And it is, my God, shock horror for a lot of Americans who have grown up with this perception of cycling as being this gear-based activity. You can't ride a bike without click-on shoes. Are you with the gloves? My God, the helmet, it's all this part of this uniform of the avid cyclist. So
even more mildly, we just think you have two things, the bike and the helmet. Those are the things. Like they're two sides of the coin, but the helmet does not necessarily need to be one.
No, I mean, we know, like I said, we know a lot about helmets. helmets. The first country in the world to implement mandatory all-age helmet laws was Australia. New Zealand follows suit. So the whole entire world looks at what they've done and what has happened to these countries since then. And every time, once in a while, when a helmet law, pops up in some politician's mind who's looking for a Band-Aid solution, some cheap brownie points. Everybody says, yeah, but look at Australia. They killed their urban cycling. 95% of high school girls in Sydney stopped riding bicycles after the helmet law came in.
95%.
Yeah, and 30 to 40% of the cycling levels dropped 30 to 40%.
Because of the helmets.
Because of the helmet law. Because of the helmet law, we know that if you start telling people that this activity, which is statistically incredibly safe and completely normal for 125 years, all of a sudden it's incredibly dangerous. You're gonna think twice about doing it, and people's personal perceptions of safety are triggered when you tell them something's dangerous.
So what else do they do helmeted? Like, how many things do people do that need a helmet in life? Very, very few.
Well, that's it. I mean, and there's this is the TED Talk I've done is it's about helmets. I didn't want to do a TED Talk about helmets. I don't want to get labeled as the helmet guy, which I haven't been, fortunately, but because it's all about more important issues. But really, it's about the culture of fear. This expression coined by the British sociologist Frank Furedi in his book of the same name. We're the safest society in the history of Homo sapiens, and yet Homo sapiens have this need to be afraid of stuff. And if you can fabricate fear, my goodness, there's a whole bunch of people who want to make money off of that.
Cash on the table.
Cash on the table, man. Follow the money. And this is the helmets are a part of that. The rationality of it. Where do head injuries come from? There's been some good studies that show that 48% of head injuries happen inside of cars, 19% in the home, only 1% on bikes.
1% on bikes.
Yeah. And there's 35,000 people a year killed in America by automobiles, sitting in them. This is a 9/11.
Inside the car.
Inside the car, also people getting hit by cars. But, this is a 9/11, really, every single month. And every single month for the past 60 years, where is the outrage? Where is the protest? It's just the status quo, do you know anybody who's been killed in a car accident personally, or have you in your...
Yes, I think so, but you have to go a couple degrees out. But everybody does.
Oh, everybody has a story of some near-death experience in a car. And here's the thing. The Australian government, in the late 1990s, they said, right, we got to reduce societal harm. We have to start saving some lives. And they found out that, if they did a study showing that if all car occupants wore helmets, they could save $400 million a year in this reduced societal harm, hospital visits, save lives as well. I think when I translate that to the American population, I think it's something like $6 billion a year. You have 35,000 dead every year, and isn't it something like a couple of million serious injuries as well? I mean, it's
wouldn't be surprised.
No, and they actually invented a motoring helmet. They put the University of Adelaide and Monash University to the task of inventing head protection for motors.
You see pictures in his TED Talk, listeners. It's real.
Absolutely, and it's in all seriousness. This was the government wanting to save lives, and the car industry, of course, said, we're not even going to talk about that. If we start telling people it's dangerous to drive a car, if news gets out that it's actually one of the most dangerous activities Homo sapiens have ever had to do, people aren't going to buy our products. That would be a bad thing. Boy, does that sound familiar? You tell people something is dangerous, they're going to, they're not going to ride a bike. They're going to get off their bike. We see this in every country in the world that has promoted, and even worse, legislated helmets. Cycling levels fall. It's really the stupidest thing you can do. This is the age of obesity, of lifestyle illnesses. We have a major epidemic on our hands. We should be doing everything we can to fix that. Cycling helps. The health benefits of cycling are 20 times greater than any risk involved, even in an American city. We have the tools at our disposal, we're not using them. We're telling people to not take that pill, and that pill being the bicycle.
It's the only way I know to keep in shape. The only thing I'm willing to do to keep in shape. I don't know about you, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't keep... Yeah, I keep in shape. I ride my bike. We know that in Copenhagen, there's some good numbers, that the 36% of the population who arrive at work or school here, they contribute 233 million euros a year in public health savings, just because they're riding their bike that 5-8 kilometers to work, listening to their iPod, ba-dum, at average speed, 12 miles an hour. There is money. They're throwing money at us, these people who ride their bicycles, including you and I. They're just saying, take the money. I'm giving it to the society. It's my gift. And the health savings are absolutely astronomical. And I'm not talking fitness gear. I'm just talking about taking your bike, And 50% of Americans live within 5 miles of their workplace. So, yeah, there's a lot of Americans we're not talking about in this conversation right now. But there's a whole lot of Americans that this would apply to. They won't all ride bikes, but if we can get that 15%, 25% onto bicycles, we reduce congestion, we just give public health a big wet kiss on the mouth, and we are well on our way to reversing the tide. Isn't this the first generation of Americans where the parents will outlive their children? I mean, we're in an epidemic here. This is the Black Death.
Finally, I just want to know, what can the promoters of urban cycling learn from the success of cars? What can they steal from cars?
There's a great book by Peter D. Norton called Fighting Traffic, and he basically, it's a really a dull read in the literary sense, but it's a fantastic book for references. So he describes what is called the anti-automobile age, when the automobile appeared in American cities. Cars were detested. Motorists were despised. You ran over a kid, and that happened a lot because children played in these democratic spaces called streets. You would almost get lynched out of your car. Monuments erected in American cities to the dead children that died under the wheels of automobiles. Massive bad publicity for cars. What happened? The automobile industry said, okay, we have a problem. We have a product to sell, and people kind of hate us. We're like tobacco. They didn't know that at that point, but and they started just simply spinning it. They started using modern marketing techniques. They started saying, oh, you're against cars? Well, you're kind of old-fashioned. Those of us who live in cities don't want to be old-fashioned, I have the new Samsung Galaxy S3. It'll be embarrassing to have the S2 at this day and age. And we want to have our finger on the pulse. And this really was an effective technique. The crosswalk. This was really defined by the automobile industry. Jaywalking was normal for 7,000 years. The automobile industry started calling people names. They started saying, you're a jaywalker. A jay, in the American slang of the day, was a country bumpkin, somebody who didn't know the ways of the big cool city. So you didn't want to be a jay, and then you didn't want to become a jaywalker. Sure. Boy Scouts enlisted to hand out flyers to people, don't be a jaywalker. And the people were going, whoa, dude, I want to fit in this city. I want to be cool. And
I want to be a jay.
I don't want to be a jay, man. I don't want to be a redneck. I'm a city boy. So this actually really reversed the tide within a period of 10, 15 years. Cars are progress. It's the vision of the future, like bicycles were 125 years ago. This was really effective. And within 10, 15 years, the paradigm had shifted. The perception of streets had changed. It was, and also the greatest thing, not really the greatest thing, but the most interesting thing is that playgrounds in their current form didn't exist. The automobile industry said, okay, the last barrier are these worried mothers. Oh, they're the worst. So we got to fix that. So playgrounds, they got together with other industries and invented this little zoological garden into which you throw your children while you read the newspaper. And as soon as the kids were off the street, boom, baby, it's rock and roll. It is the new normal. It is cars only on these streets. Everybody else, watch out. And what do we do now? We reverse that. We take it back. My rhetoric a lot in all the interviews I do is that, this city, if I'm being interviewed by a newspaper in some city or television, it's a nice city, but it's really kind of old-fashioned. It's a bit last century.
A little bit Jay.
It's a bit Jay. And this really pushes people's buttons. My God, man. But effectively so, right? Whoa. I'm not cool. I'm not fashion. I'm not one of the cool kids. No, you're not. That other city over there, they're one of the cool kids, man. You want to go to their parties on Friday night, you got to do something else. It's really interesting. I've had 2 meetings today before I met you with 2 mayoral candidates. We have an election coming up here, and I've been
seen all the posters.
Yeah, God, yeah. And and two of them that I support in different parties. But and I'm telling them, spin it, man. You got to spin it. You got to say old-fashioned. These other parties yapping on about parking spots for cars. No, this is grandma's generation. This is like last century. You know, the cool kids are modernizing now, and they really. I'm gonna watch them in the next couple of weeks, but they really kind of enjoyed being handed a rhetoric that actually triggers a lot of things. You know, it's for the kids, man. It's for safer cities. It's more livable cities.
It's for the children.
Yeah, that's it, basically. In the Netherlands in the 70s, they had the Stop the Child Murder campaign because kids were getting killed by cars, and there was simply a national campaign that came out of nowhere, Stop Child Murder. And that...
Hard to argue with that.
You can't argue with that at all, and it worked.
You know, I'd like to keep it going. You know, can we reduce child murder, not stop it? No one says that.
Can I kill 2 kids a week instead of 10? Is that okay? Can we agree on that? No. You know, and that was the transformational effect on Holland as a more bicycle-friendly, public transport-friendly nation. That was their defining moment. One of them was this campaign. You know, 35,000 people dying every year in your country. You know, where is the Stop the Murder campaign?
Right. Indeed so. I've been speaking here in Vesterbro with Mikael Colville-Andersen. He is the CEO of Copenhagenize. He is an expert in urban mobility. Michael, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.
This has been Notebook on Cities and Culture. I've been Colin Marshall. You can keep up with the cultural creators, internationalists, and observers of the urban scene on the show at colinmarshall.org. Thanks. Special thanks to everyone who backed Season 4 on Kickstarter, including Joel Neville-Anderson, Daniel Levin-Becker, Paige Calvert, Commander Manvark, Jonathan Crow, John Cunningham, David Dawes, James DeVito, Tim Dobbs, Paul Doyle, Jake Elliott, Kevin Emmett, Lawrence English, Jonathan Filbert, Andrew Philippone Jr., Michael Fransky, John French, Themistocles Eucrucius, Will Graham, Umberto Grant, Samuel Hansen, David Hayes, Jeff Hillenbrand, Mark Hines, Andrew Johnstone, Tadeusz Andrzej Kodlubowski, Peter Kavanagh, Ted Kane, Andy Cooney, Evan Landman, Alfred Lee, James Maloney, Sean McDonald, Alberto Bruzos Moro, Jason Miller, Rob Montz, Daniel Murphy, Richard Nash, Aidan Nullman, Patrick O'Flaherty, Danny Olson, Michael O'Regan, Ian Blosker, Christopher Porter, MJ Pritchett, Piers Rippey, Rob Schultz, Todd Shimoda, Cam Smith, Deborah Smith, Adam Sutherland, Maureen Kincaid-Speller, Anna Treher, Thomas Unterberger, Matt Warren, Nick Weigelt, Dion Wolf, Cynthia Yang, and Wayne Wright.